Now we're about to finish this chapter on free will, but we'll look at two arguments in the end. First is on social conditions for freedom. It's meant as a kind of objection against what I've said so far that we'll reply to. And then I'll say a bit about artificial intelligence and free will. And that is meant as a supporting argument to what I've said so far. So first then, social conditions for freedom. I've been talking a lot about physics, determinism, etc. But it's also quite important the social conditions that makes us want something and gives us an understanding of what we can choose, the different alternatives we can choose of, etc. So other people, language, concepts, and especially recognition is important for understanding why do we want to do that which we want to do. So there was this famous article by Isaiah Berlin in 1969 where he talked about positive and negative freedom, which corresponds quite closely to what I've called freedom of will and freedom of action. But in addition, he, in that article, talked about social freedom. And his point was that social recognition is an important condition for freedom. Recognition, that means both to confirm something, but also to evaluate something, to be recognized by others. So, for instance, if I want to become married, if this is something for me to desire or for it to be possible for me to get married at all, society must recognize that there is such a thing as marriage, that it's possible to get married, and others must recognize that I am worthy of being married. Someone must be there, and I must recognize that marriage is a good thing. And the same applies then to all sorts of things. You must be recognized as a member of a football club or as a member of this country, and that there is such a thing as an election or as football, and that this is possible to play, or that it's something that it's good to do, etc. So when it comes to one thing is what is physically possible, but it's also what is socially possible, or what is understood as actions that one can do and alternatives that one can want to do, etc. All that depends on interaction with other people and language and recognition. So this is important for understanding why do we want to do that which we want to do. So it's a helpful addition to what I've said so far, but it's not in contradiction to it. It just fills out the picture with more details. Then Charles Taylor wrote an article discussing this article by Berlin, and he said, well, even when people have positive and negative freedom, freedom of will, freedom of action, they can have internal constraints on their freedom. They can lack freedom because maybe they've been given a false understanding of the world, or false understanding of what is good and bad. So they can want things that they don't really want, in the sense that it's not really what is good for them or what is best for them. And I think it's easy to think of examples. So you can imagine someone raised in this strict environment or a sect or something, and people from the outside would say, well, it seems you're being very oppressed, but they can say, no, this is what we want, etc. But it could be then that they've been told, for instance, that this is very good, and if you don't do this, then eternal pain is waiting after death. Or there can be all these sorts of mechanism in play that makes people want something which is not actually good for them, or which they would not have wanted in another given other conditions. So this could sound like an objection to what I've said, because I've said that if the autobiographical self forms itself over time, then you become free. But maybe it forms itself in a narrow sect, which makes the person quite unfree. But again, it's not in contradiction to what I said, because if you are being given more options, more alternatives, told more about these are the different viewpoints, etc., then the autobiographical self will become more free. It will have more alternatives to choose among, and it's greater opportunity to shape itself or form itself. Instead, if it's only been told this is the only options that you have, then it would be, if the autobiographical self have many options to choose among, it will be to a greater degree self-formed and inner caused, you could say, whereas it will be more externally caused if it's other people giving strong constraints and pushing strong in one direction. So again, it's not in contradiction to what I've said, but it's a way of nuancing and offering more details to the picture from Charles Taylor there. Second topic, or second argument, artificial intelligence and free will. Here I'm going to use 4 main types of artificial intelligent agents, from very simple agents to complex agents, and it's based on a very standard introduction book to artificial intelligence by Russell and Norvig. And the point is to use them to see or to describe how well it fits with how I've described the development of free will. We'll see that in a second. Also, in another introductory book by Niels Nilsson, he says explicitly that how artificially intelligent agents have evolved into more complex is very similar to how we think that the human mind has developed through evolution. So that's the idea here, to give support to this causal understanding of the mind by looking at how it works in artificial intelligent agents. So you have 4 types of such AI agents then. You have a simple reflex agent. It works on this if A then B condition. So for instance, you can have a self-driving car, and if something stands in front of the car, then it should stop. So it reacts immediately to something in the environment there and then, and that's like the disposition that we have in the brain that simple animals have, and that we also have many of. Like if something is coming against your eye, then you automatically blink your eye, and these kinds of then simple disposition. But you also have model-based reflex agents, and then it's not just reacting immediately to the environment, but it also has models of previous learning, which makes it possible to act in more complex ways based on what has been learned, and not just immediately sensing what's in the environment. So this is like our memory then giving us more advanced repertoire to act upon. Goal-based agents, they have goals that they try to achieve, and then different models for what is possible for them to do. And so then it starts looking like our making choices when we have different alternatives to choose among. And then the most complex is the utility-based agents, which is supposed to achieve the best goal in the best way then. And it will compare different goals based on the overall utility. So this is comparable to us making the best choice, and it's a bit funny when Russell and Norvig actually say we should think of this as asking what makes the machine most happy, but as engineers we can't say happy, so we use the term utility instead, which sounds more scientific. But we can see the parallel there to humans. And if you add then also machine learning, that the machines can learn over time, try and fail, etc., it's comparable to the autobiographical self shaping itself over time. So of course humans have emotions that can be conscious, etc. in addition. So I'm not saying that humans are exactly like machines, but I'm showing all these parallels to support the view that many of these mechanisms can occur as causal processes in the brain. To sum up then, Chapter 8 has been on free will, and I've said that free will is this internal or internal control was maybe the wrong term to put there, but it's inner directedness, that you cause your choices from inside, and that this comes in degrees. So the more that your autobiographical self forms itself, the freer you will be. That means that you can also become more free than you are today, or more independent, more self-formed, and more responsible if you explore new alternatives, think about what to do, experience different consequences, etc. You can make better choices and become a more independent and self-formed and responsible person. That's interesting. to know and to explore. So with this, we have finished the whole part 2 of the book about the mind, and now we can then move on to the external world outside of the mind and look at different topics. And we'll start by the topic of time in chapter 9.